Sten Morgan here with Andy Traub. Today we are going to go directly at probably one of the biggest obstacles we see advisors face to transforming their business, charging for their advice, going from average to elite, and it is themselves. It is about confidence. And I'm always worried that people are going to look at this like those inspirational posters on the wall that have like the eagle and it's like never fly alone or whatever, like it at times it might sound a little inspirational poster-ish, but the reality is you are in your way, a lot of you. And I'm not being mean-spirited when I say this. I'm saying it because this is the number one piece of feedback we get of, what was the most helpful thing you received from this training, whether it's our How to Charge Live, whether it's our EAN program, the ongoing community, whether it's a coaching session with me or a talk you give at an event, it's mindset. It's that I now believe something that a day and a half ago I didn't believe. That's right. Or 6 weeks ago I didn't believe, or an hour ago I didn't believe. And so where does that confidence come from? And how can you who are listening or watching on YouTube, how can you get over the confidence barrier or lack thereof and get into actually charging for your advice, learning from it, raising your fees, providing better service, working with a different level of client? So we're gonna dive real deep into that. Yeah, a few things before we do that are fascinating is, do you know why they call blind spots blind spots?
No, you can't see.
Because you can't see them. And what's amazing is you're listening to this now or watching on YouTube, and there's something in you that's like, no, I'm good. My life's comfortable. And what you don't know, and what we know from experience with other advisors and personally, is there's a massive blind spot you don't see yet, that if you became aware of it, it would change your life.
Yeah.
It would change your business. You would have the feeling of I can't believe I used to live that way.
Yeah.
And so my hope is as you listen today that you are open that exists. And so as we press you a little bit, that you realize and internalize the cost of not doing something, the cost of not being humble and saying, okay, maybe these guys are onto something. Maybe all the people that are changing the way they approach their business, their family, whatever it is, are open, that you are open to saying there's a chance that change will dramatically impact my future.
And I would actually think that, I believe that if you're listening to this, you are already a believer. You are very likely not going to listen and go, these guys, that's crazy, that won't work. But I will also submit that a vast majority of the people who listen to this show or watch it are not charging for their advice. But they're wanting to, and they're looking for the path, they're looking for the direction. And so today, I think, could be one of the most important episodes we've ever done in our 60-some episodes over a year of doing the show, because it's going to help you understand, that's why I haven't actually just done it. Why have I not just done it? What's holding me back?
Yeah. And there shouldn't be any guilt or shame tied to it, because still today, there's things on a daily basis. I'm okay, I'm recognizing myself that I don't want to do that. I'm thinking of things to distract myself from doing it, whether intentionally or not. And I have to re-engage that part of myself that's okay, Sten, just do the hard thing. It's going to be worth it.
Remember I told you about whenever you hear the vacuum in my office? Remember I told you that?
Yes.
What? I'm trying to remember if I told you or not.
I can't remember how you put it, but it's about rearranging your furniture. And
whenever I'm rearranging my office here, or wherever you hear the vacuum, I've given Sten permission to walk in and go, what are you not working on? What are you avoiding?
That's right.
Because that's what it is. Because if I'm vacuuming, it's I don't want to do that.
Right.
Oh, I need to vacuum. That's sweet.
Right. Yeah. And there's something to feng shui in your office. I get that.
I do have better feng
If
shui.
you're changing your office furniture weekly, that's a problem.
Every other month. Okay, back off. Okay, let's not make this about me, Sten.
That's right.
But really, it's stop avoiding this and dive into it. So I want to give some credit. Part of the idea that we're going to be talking about today is from an author, a woman that I follow, Mel Robbins, Melrobbins. You can follow her on all the different socials. She has a great, I think it's a TED Talk, but also a book called The 5-Second Rule, and which is really transformational idea, which is sort of kills all your excuses. But she talked about this, and we've just sort of adapted and developed it some more as it relates to this topic. Sten, I want to ask you specifically, what's something as it relates to the idea of confidence? Where do you get confidence? What is something that as old as you could be, 20s or whatever, that you're never going to happen, but now today has totally happened and is 100% true?
Yeah. For me, it was running a business or owning a business. I was going to be on a team, get paid well, contribute, because that is all I ever knew. Like no one in my family ever owned a business, was in charge, led
Let
people.
me ask you, like, to dive into like childhood for just a second. Like, can you think of anyone that you knew growing up, like a family friend or a neighbor that owned a business?
I mean, I knew that my stepdad had worked for somebody that owned a business, and they seemed like they were doing a good job.
You're
But as far as anybody that was like close to me.
Yeah, my stepdad's boss. He owned the business.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
everyone that my family was
boss.
working for.
No, I'm talking like a family friend. Yeah.
Not that I can remember.
Me either.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing this now. We done all this planning for the episode, talked about it, but like, I don't think I knew any. And what's crazy is, let me answer this. How many do you know now?
Most of the people I know well. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, I know dozens and dozens and dozens. So it's interesting that shift can happen.
And for me, as I reflect, and this is at times helpful when I talk to them or coach them, it's like, it wasn't that I did this overnight or I was born into this. Like,
No.
Take encouragement that I was so far from this and my limiting beliefs and kind of family history. But it wasn't that I all of a sudden overnight became a successful business owner. For me, it was I got into sales.
Yeah.
Which was risky and hard. Still working for an organization, but like technically I controlled my own schedule. And that was kind of risky. I was betting on myself, entrepreneur, but it was in a sales capacity. And then I was like, oh, I need help to do this. So I hired my first person to help me. So everything is a progression. And I think we just have to be able to get better at recognizing, like, I need to take a step versus the curse of comfort when a lot of advisors get to a place where like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. And the list is actually a long list of excuses and distractions on why you're not doing the elite thing. And we're on calls all the time with advisors that within 5 minutes, we can pick out the thing that they're avoiding. And so that's just true for everybody. And so we have to realize that it's happening to all of us, but the few that people look to and say, wow, look what they're doing, are the ones that get really good at recognizing that feeling and overriding it more frequently.
So your example being that you never really thought you were going to be a business owner, you're a business owner. There's things in my life that I know that, I was like, I don't think I could ever do that. And suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. And the only reason is because I tried. So we're going to talk about step by step sort of what goes on in our brains when we try things and how we can overcome the hesitancy to not try things. So the first is that I think it's really, really helpful, and this is a great conversation I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say one time, which they said, like, why are you okay with failure? And he said, because I never risk it all. People think he's like, I'm okay with failure because I've never been willing to put it all down to where it's really going to hurt me that much if I fail at something. Yeah. And so it's not like I'm going to learn how to land after I jump. Like, no, like you're just going to you're going to navigate to make sure that, like, if I do hit the ground, it's not going to kill me, right? Yep. And so the first thing is that the cost of trying, if you're considering whatever it is you're considering, we'll talk about charging for your advice specifically, that the actual cost of that could be quite low. So let me give a really practical example. If your company is set up in a way, or if you're the business owner, that you're like, I could charge. I wonder what would happen if someone went into their next meeting and simply said, this is how I work. Like, the cost of that is what? Like one lead, right? Yeah,
the missed opportunity,
right?
Which is amazing to me in our industry, and this was a camp I was in for a long time. The lengths we will go to not miss out on a potential opportunity. The dinners we'll buy, the amount of time we'll give away for free because we're like, but what if they say no?
Yeah.
And we don't pause long enough to say, like, yeah, but if I create a whole new business model that separates me from other advisors and creates new revenue, isn't that a bigger loss than this potential person that still may never do business with me, but I'm willing not to take that risk? The worst thing that could happen is they just say no. Or they're slightly confused because your delivery isn't great and you get another meeting with them. And the best way to learn is to do it. Obviously, we offer programs and courses because it's like, don't recreate it on your own if you don't have to. But even if you do, even if you're just bent on saying, I'm just going to try it and figure it out, doing it once, you're already closer. Yeah. And I love that analogy you made about the karate.
Oh, yeah. So, and again, this is just the benefit of following the right people on Instagram and being motivated. But really, like, there is so much wisdom out there. There's just so much wisdom out there for us to have. And one great insight I heard recently was that the most difficult, that someone was asking someone that was started in martial arts and said, what's the most difficult belt? And they said, well, I assume it's the black belt. And this person had just put on, I believe, the white belt, their first belt. And I said, actually, no, it's the one you're wearing. The one you're wearing is the most difficult one because more people in the world, right, have never had a white belt. Like, you are so much closer to a black belt than you've ever been before because you actually started and put on the white belt. And it was this amazing encouragement for this person who suddenly went from like, oh, I'm a baby, I'm a child, I'm brand new at this. They're going, no, you're so much further. You've done something that a majority of human beings will never, ever do. Now, once you're in, black belt's the hardest. But you have to realize, like, if you charge $1,000 for a plan, I love it when I'm on a coaching call and I'll be like, or just last week, someone had joined EAN and said, well, I've done 3 plans and I'm charging like $1,500. And I'm like, that's amazing. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because we're going to get you to 4,500 like super fast because, it's literally just a different number.
That's right.
Instead of a 1, it's a 4. You know what I mean? And so, we had people come here and we told this story before, but they're like, oh, 4,000. Or I call them the 4K gang. Shout out to you guys. I know you're listeners. But 36 hours later, they're the 10K gang. They're like, absolutely, because it was there, we just had to be kind of boosted up a little bit. So remember that if you started that little step, if that's going to lead to bigger things. But remember that the cost is low. That will help you start to, it's like, what is this really going to cost me? This one lead that might actually lead to more. And the other is that you don't have to stop doing what you're already doing. I talked to someone today who works at a pretty major company. And they said, we started whiteboarding, but we still love this brochure. And we're still using the brochure, just less. And we're doing a lot more whiteboarding. But we're not going to abandon everything that we were doing. And that's the other invitation. We're not saying start over, rip up everything we've ever done. But what we are saying is you have to be open to trying something in addition to or new.
Because leaning into other people's experience and wisdom, if the idea is that you know better than everybody else, or you are the exception to every rule, you have to learn to sit back and look at the landscape and say, okay, for some reason, a lot of people are having success doing this. Maybe there's a chance they know something I don't, which is counter to most of us as humans or business owners
hard,
or
Stan.
competitors.
That's just hard. It's hard because it's very humbling because you basically are saying, someone knows something I don't. Someone's smarter than me. Someone's executing. But the reality
or the way I've been doing it is not good. So it calls into question every decision up to that point, which is not true. All of it's a progression leading to the next thing. But if you can sit back, and this happens to me in relationship life, marriage, kids, it's like something is so believable to me in the moment based off of where I am in my life stage. And I look at somebody, I'm like, how do they see it that way? Until now, I've lived enough life to where it's like, now I'm older and I look and I'm like, oh, that's why. But I couldn't get it back then. And so my hope is when I'm around people, I'm just like, I'm going to hold space for that. There's a chance that's fully true.
So another way to consider this, and again, we're going to do the second one after this, but the first is you have to, the way you get confidence is you have to understand, like, it doesn't cost me that much to try this thing. So that's like, okay.
Version 1.
And that's Gitmo. You're great about that. Good enough to move on. Gitmo. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to cost you everything. We're not putting it all on red or all on black and roll the wheel and,
when I started doing financial planning, I didn't hire a paraplanner. I didn't reinvent our process. I didn't invest in much technology. I just spent a couple hours building a 2-page proposal, and I went to somebody and said, hey, it's $1,500 for me to do all this stuff. And then I just held my breath.
And then
worst case, I lose out on them, and they didn't buy some insurance and put a couple $100,000 with me. Like it just the cost of not doing it. Now I know 5 years later, what I would have missed out on for my practice and all the revenue and all the AUM. Like it is a high cost.
I love the way you phrase that though about the cost of not doing it, because everyone could do this, and don't do this unless you want to be depressed or motivated. I'm not sure which, but if you would have bought Apple stock instead of the latest Apple computer for the last 15 years, if you would have just not bought the computer but bought the stock instead, it's like, oh, I've been spending all this money on electronic goods instead of the stock, right? And it's like, oh, right. So the next thing about the cost of trying is low is, and this is where the rest of them are encouraging.
Yes.
Which is super encouraging, which is the likelihood of learning if you try something is super high.
Maybe borderline guaranteed.
Yeah, borderline guaranteed. And here's why. Because if your goal is to learn, not to just get to yes, if your goal is to learn, when they say no, you'll learn. Like this was I think our last episode, is we basically went through someone's quote unquote failure and said, what can we learn from that? And even they said, man, as I'm answering these questions about my failures, I'm learning the right thing to do. Right. This is watching the game tape and going, oh, that's where I missed that play or I missed that block. Like everything is information, even the bad stuff. It's just data.
Yeah.
Right?
And the best business owners and athletes have short memories.
Yeah.
Because you get another swing. You're like, okay, what's another rep? I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it better every time.
there is no substitute for just doing it, for trying it. I mean, I can explain, as I'm in the heart of baseball season right now, and I've got these kids, and it's like there is no substitute for a pitcher from another team on the mound. Your parents are in the stands, and you got a bat in your hand. It's like you can be in the batting cage, you can be at practice with me, but there's no substitute for just actually being in the game, and that's what's going to make you better, is being in the game. Everything else is just sort of fantasy and hope, and it's super safe.
Yep.
But I will also say that self-aware people always learn. And we're surrounded by these people. We're very blessed to call a lot of them customers, because it's, I just know that I don't know enough, right? And that they're always going to learn, even if it doesn't go well. The next one is, so we've got the cost of trying is low. The likelihood of learning is extremely high. And then the removal of insecurity is incredibly high. Like once you've done it, and you kind of tricked yourself into becoming a business owner, but when you've done it, or sort of kind of done it one time, I'm thinking of you winning the dance contest at your daughter's school dance. You're like, you know what? Like, what's the real cost here, right? The cost was like, I'll make a fool of myself for a minute or two. But, the returns were like, my daughters looked at me with puppy eyes and said, Daddy, you need to do in the daddy dance competition, right? And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to learn, right? And I guess I'm going to get over it, because I'm going to do it. And so once you do it, it seems scary. It's like, it's just not that scary once you've done it once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
I think part of it too is just recognizing whatever you feel, if it's fear, insecurity, whatever, like that's okay. Like the goal is not to remove fear. No. I mean, what is courage? It's fear with action. Yeah. Like the most courageous people aren't that they never are scared of anything. It's just they actually do something in spite of that fear. My son asked a girl to dance a few weeks ago. She said no. And I said, dude, that was scarier than when I asked your mom to marry me. I said, because I knew I knew your mom was going to say yes. She was just waiting for me to have enough money to get the ring, I said, that was so brave, man, because you didn't know she was going to say yes. And he goes, well, I thought she was going to say yes. Otherwise I wouldn't have asked her. I said, I know. Then he asked another girl. She said no. All these girls are going through. Now he did get a date, so shout out Sammy T. But here's the thing. It got easier for him to ask. He's like, oh, I'll just ask another one. I'll ask another one. I'll go with the guys. Oh, okay, I'll ask one other. But the point is that it got easier because he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And the more you do it, the braver you get at it, right? He's like, oh, I didn't die. Yeah. And there's another girl I can ask out, And that's that definition of regret, when it's your realization that you need to do something different, but you don't have the time to do it anymore. Yeah. And obviously we're all going to look hindsight 2020, but if you are an advisor in this business and you have more than 5 years left in your career, you have to figure this out. You have to learn that you have value, and you have to be able to ask for a fee, because the industry is changing, and it is a guaranteed regret if you don't do it. I appreciate, I feel like I skipped over it, so I'm going to go back. I appreciated your clarity about, what is confidence? What is courage? It's not that courageous, is my point, to do things if you know the outcome. That's right. I would submit that has nothing to do with, that's not courageous at all. You know what I mean? It is courageous to go into something when you're not sure of the outcome. But where does that confidence and courage come from? I think it just has to come from like, hey, this isn't the end of the world if it doesn't work out, and I'm going to learn, right? The last thing is that, second to last, is that you have to have a willingness to repeat. And if you're willing to look at this in versions, like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to learn, I'm going to do it again. It is not a one-time thing. Nice. It is not. You don't get one shot at this, and if you don't get it right, it's over forever. You will keep getting shots at this. And what's so great is that we get to work with so many people, and it's just this steady, opportunities come, you win some, you lose some, but every time you win one or lose one, you learn from it. And it's just data. This is something you're good at. I think that if this is one of your superpowers who are listening or watching, I applaud you. But one of the things you're really good at, Sten, is you remove sort of the emotion, and you're like, yep, they said no. Like, we were talking today about a client of ours, and it was like a VAN, and it was like, oh, that's good information. Like, we just take it as information. We didn't take it personally, right? We weren't crushed by it. It was like, oh, that's good information. I remember we lost this massive deal once, like a couple of years ago. And I was like,
I could be really bothered by this, or I could just go like, what do we need to learn from this?
Oh, yeah.
And we learned a lot.
And in hindsight, it was good we didn't get it.
It was good we didn't get it. But I also just think, what if we were all emotionally tied to it and we're like, oh, they're jerks, or we're horrible. Like, what if
We were kind of emotionally tied to it.
Okay, we were emotionally tied to it. But I would say this.
But we got over it quick.
Very quickly, it was like, and the more now that we look back on it, it's like, wow, we didn't ask some questions we should have asked.
Yep.
And we saw some signs that now we're a lot smarter. Like there are clients you walk away from now because of your experience with other clients where you're like, thank goodness they didn't say yes.
Yeah.
Right. Or you go, oh yeah, you're like that other one that said yes. I don't want this yes.
Nope.
But again, you don't learn those things. So you have to be willing to repeat. And when you do, the results will be just data. You're not emotionalized. It's not emotional. It's just, okay, they said no. What can I do to get better? And the last thing is when you have confidence, your chances of success will go up and up and up. I would submit this then, and I believe this comes from just trying and trying and trying, is that everyone listening or watching can develop confidence, and it is so intangible, but it's so real, is when someone believes what they're saying or they don't.
Yeah, it's true.
Like you ever ask a waiter, like, what's good here? And they're like,
the long pause.
Chicken? And you're like,
was there a question mark at the end of that?
Right. So I want to encourage folks, when you have enough confidence, your chances of success go up because it's this chemical thing that happens when you believe it's going to happen or work.
Yep.
We're getting into The Secret a little bit. We're not going to do that book, The Secret.
Nice.
Anyway.
But you can also borrow confidence from other people. And part of EAN for us and me sharing my journey, which was bumpy, is that like, hey, here's where I started, which is probably where you are. And very quickly you can be here. And so if it's like Sten says it's true. Sten says if I do it this way, people will say yes. And we know now that we've never had anybody try it and it not work out. Maybe their hits rate not as high as they want it to, so we coach them through that, or their initial fee is not as high. But no one ever that we've worked with or coached or has gone through our program has said, I can't get a yes ever.
Yeah.
Or no one's willing to pay me for my advice in time. So like if the limiting belief you're still stuck on is this doesn't work, like borrow from us that it does.
Yeah.
And if you're like, yeah, but I'm not that type of advisor, well, don't you want to be? And another luxury we have is we get to see so many advisors. And this helped me when I was young in my career because I had a view of what the stereotypical top advisor looked like. And then the more advisors I met that were at these top performing top advisor things, I was like, I didn't think you would be here. Like, I never thought you'd look and talk that way. Like, you dress that
100%.
way. Like, it's
100%.
The idea that like the skill set is transferable.
Yeah.
And the package, the delivery, whoever you think you are, wherever you came from, is an excuse you're making up.
Yeah.
I was meeting with an advisor the other day, and I was like, your age is an excuse. Like,
Yeah.
you were on the phone with me, you've brought up your age 4 times. Stop saying it.
I wonder if it's the same advisor I talked to, because I
Stop
actually
talking about
coached them, and I literally said, all right, well, it was delivering their coaching plan. They're a new member to EA, and I was literally like, I never want to hear you talk about your age again.
Yep.
Ever, And I said, because it's become an excuse for you of why people would say no, and it's killing your confidence.
Yep.
So I love the borrowed confidence. I'll wrap with this and then give you the final word. If you are willing to submit to someone who's been down the road before, one of the things we do when you become an EAN community member is we build a coaching plan for you, and we agree on these are your 3 primary business priorities right now. Yep. And what's so fascinating is most of the time I'm switching them for people because they're sort of saying these distractions over here versus like, you don't need more marketing. You need to get in front of people. Yep. You need to get better at presenting a plan, and you need to charge more. And they're like, yeah, that's better than working on my website.
That's right. Yep.
And so part of it is just borrowing the confidence to say, yes, I will submit to just going for it. Yep. Right. And I have men in my life that say, hey, if you want to be better at this, Andy, then I just want you to try this. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll submit to that. But the great thing is when you do it and you're around people that are wiser and have been down the path, for a lot of people, that's you. For a lot of people, that's other people in our community. You just follow their path.
Yep.
And you will gain confidence, not from like, I don't think I can do it. It's like, don't worry. I think you can do it. I'm like, okay, then I'll do it.
Don't try it. If you think, as you listen to this, that you are on an average path, meaning you're doing okay, but like nothing, you couldn't create a great argument if you were sitting in front of me and Andy right now on like, I'm doing something unusual. Like I'm having unusual results. I'm taking unusual steps. Then you need an outside perspective to shake that up. Call us. Like, let us put you through that coaching plan and just say, hey, let us shake up what you're currently doing, because you need at times an external jolt to kind of say, oh, I just got caught in this hamster wheel of life because it's working for me. But like at times you need somebody to come in and shake that up.
Yeah. Well, folks, thanks for listening today. We always appreciate, it's just been amazing the amount of calls we have, week to week with people who are listening to the show and taking it in and joining it in or coming to our live events. And so thank you for listening. Thanks for leaving reviews. They've been great. I'm actually going to read a couple next time. We've got some new ones that are really good. And we encourage you to borrow confidence from others, to try this, to, don't bet it all on it, but do try something new. And if we can help, which we believe we can, reach out to us and we'd love to help. Thanks for listening.